You have been a thorn in my side for far too long, Avatar. Your two worlds will be crushed. Britannia first, then Earth. I shall parade you before their conquered peoples as the fallen idol of a pathetic ideal. I banish you to the world of Pagan. No one here knows of the Avatar. Your treasured Britannia succumbs easily. Soon all the land will be mine. Yes, Avatar, seek our way home. Soon, I shall be able to call Britannia mine. It seems, Avatar, that you are missed here. Why, I believe I hear Lord British crying out for you now.
Hark, is that the sweet song of lamentation I hear? Your treasured Britannia succumbs easily. Soon all the land will be mine. Your treasured Britannia succumbs easily. Soon all the land will be mine. Ah, Avatar, the thrill of conquest is so invigorating. There is no escape from this prison. Nystel sent his best, Avatar.